Alright, hey guys, I am David for Big Bits, and in this video we are going to be covering a couple of minor updates here on TradingView, one of which does involve Pine, the other one is just another drawing tool update, which you can probably see it on the chart right now. If you're familiar with my videos and you keep up to date with everything that's going on TradingView, you'll probably tell what's different. But we are going to go ahead and get started with the Pine Script update. This is a really minor update, but it brings another important feature, which ties Pine Script to the front end side as well. It gives you a little bit more control over what users see and how they interact with your scripts as well. So we'll do that in just a minute, but I did want to say, first of all, thank you to TradingView for subscribing to the YouTube channel. They left a comment on another one of my videos here just in the last day that they are now subscribed to my account as well, so that's great. And also I have to give them a big shout out anyway, because they sent me this awesome hat, and well, them along with the Pine Coders group sent along the awesome hat, which I will try to wear throughout some of our videos if I can remember to. But that just goes to show you. And if you notice the Brave logo or the Brave browser on my hoodie, I do wear merch, so like sending free stuff, I'll wear it. But anyway, let's get into the video here. What we're working with here on Pine Script are tooltips. Now, this is something that we have also requested on the channel. I think I mentioned it in the last video when we were talking about our input groups, the inline groups as well. We mentioned that we had also been looking forward to these tooltips, and if you're not familiar with tooltips, you're not a programmer, these are just kind of helpful little balloon pop-ups that let you know kind of what's going on, give you a little bit more detail about what's going on. It's a tool tip, it's a little helpful tip to help you with the tool. So let's go ahead and take a look at the indicator. We're still kind of playing around with this one that we used a while back as far as some of our other examples. I think we've only used it for the grouping, but you can see here this little information icon here, and all you have to do to get your tooltip to show up on this section and the inputs, hover over it, and it will tell you what you put in for your tooltip for this particular input. Now, it's important to note, you don't have to use line breaks. This was automatically formatted for me, so I didn't have to do \n to escape to a new line. It's all taken care of for you in the browser here on the front end through their code to render this on the page. It's taken care of for you there. So that's pretty friendly. Now, I'll show you how we actually get to here, but if you want to toggle this off for whatever reason, you can click on that and it'll go away. You can't click on it to get it to come back, so just move your mouse off of it, move it back on, it'll show back up again. Now, you can do these for all of these. I haven't actually tried doing this with the grouped items, so that should be something we should take a look at probably while we're on the video. Now, I am going to do some TA later, but we'll come back to this in just a minute and see how these work in the groups. But I want to go ahead and get to the other update as well before we start kind of playing around with these things towards the end of the educational part of the video before we get to the technical analysis. Now, I'm going to hit cancel now that you've seen it. This is very simple. You can see we are just adding another property here to our input for enabling the highlight. You can see it's just another property here for tooltip. We set this equal to the text that we want to show up when they hover over that information icon. Very simple stuff. You can always, of course, see, well, not always, but most of the times you can see the very important Pine updates when you go to the What's New section. If you have the badge notification up there, you'll see they added this on March 19th. I haven't gotten around to making a video as quickly as I would have liked. I've been super busy, but here we are today. And then you can also see the other item we're going to be talking about here is the ability to add emojis to the chart notes. And I probably should have zoomed in earlier. Sometimes I forget about that tool. But let's zoom in on the tooltip here. That way you can kind of see that a little bit better. You can see that our property is called tooltip. You set the text equal to whatever you want it to be. Now, the signpost tool is really simple. You can find that over here underneath your brush. You'll probably have to expand your menu here and go down to signpost. Now, I added it here because with this emoji, it's like, yeah, maybe we should be a little bit worried, depending on what's going to happen soon here, but things have worked out well. So you click on this, and it brings up the drawing tool menu for whatever drawing tool you have selected. You go to the settings here. We don't have any text just yet, You can also set your coordinates. Now, this changes the location relative to its vertical position. So since this was a negative event, I colored it red with our style, and I moved it down below the red bar as well. You can see there's an option for the emoji pin as well here. So you can add the emoji pin. The red color here in the color picker is the background for the signal post. And then of course you use your emoji picker here, which is kind of nice. You can put whatever you want. I think this one's appropriate for that particular day and how people were feeling then. Kind of starting to split things a little bit. But it's very simple. Now, you can also add text onto this still as too. And there we go. So we have our new signpost with an emoji. And were you worried? I know a lot of people were. And if you followed me on my Twitter, which is, I believe it's BigBits.io, you should be able to find it in the description of the video. But I do post from time to time some of my TA stuff. And I tend to only post when it's very important. And we'll get into more TA in just a minute. But I did post yesterday that I thought that if we don't bounce this day or today now when I'm recording this, that we could be in trouble and we could be heading down a little bit further and being down for a while. But I was pretty confident that there was a good possibility we would bounce there. So I didn't make any predictions that we would for sure go down. But I'll get into the TA, but I'll just say things looked really bad on the smaller time frames, although the daily and stuff still held up really well. All right, before I get too far into that, let's go ahead now and take a look back at the tooltip and see how this is going to work with our groups. Now, we're just going to use a sample tooltip here. We're going to copy this one. We have a group here for our end period time. Let's try this one. Let's just put a tooltip here on this one. And let's see, this one is the Boolean here. So this is whether you want to use the end. Okay, and then let's also take this, put one here. This is the time. This is our timestamp selection here. So we will put on here ending date. That's fine for now. Let's go ahead and remove the old one. Let's see what this looks like when we've got a tooltip within an inline group. Okay, so you'll notice we only have one, which is kind of interesting. So TradingView said you subscribe to my channel. You might want to point this out for people, or maybe perhaps somewhere in the documentation, that the inline grouping doesn't support the tooltips on the beginning items here. So you can see right here after end, we don't have one. And we did have one up here after use highlight. So maybe it's perhaps something I've done, but it does seem like a potential issue to where you can only have one tooltip per inline group. And it looks like it'll be the last tooltip that you have. So that's something to keep an eye out of. And let's go ahead and erase that one, add it to the chart, and let's use the first one and see if it'll even work for that one. So yeah, it looks like it will only use the tooltip for the last one used within the inline group. So there's some logic they might want to work out to potentially include that in there, or to make it clear. And there's always a good chance I haven't actually read all the documentation, because that does happen quite a bit. Here we go. They do mention this. So it will only display the last tooltip. So hey, they already thought about it. Good for them. This is one of the reasons why you should actually read these blogs, because sometimes I don't. This seems like a simple enough update to add the tooltip to your inputs, but there are some sort of gotchas like this that you might run into from time to time, and when you're unprepared and you're recording a YouTube video, you might wish you had read it beforehand. Or when you're making a script and preparing it for publish and you wonder why you're missing a tooltip, you might wish you had read the blog. All right, so that's going to be it for the sort of educational part of the video and kind of talking about what's going on. I do want to go and I want to discuss technical analysis for Bitcoin and Ethereum specifically. Now, I do this from time to time on the channel. It's been a couple of weeks since I've been able to make a video, but we should have a pretty good one here today. We've hit some pretty key levels recently. And again, if you've been following me on Twitter and you only pay attention to the tweets where I talk about TA, you'd be aware of kind of what's going on as far as where I'm coming from with TA. I don't have a lot of time on my hands right now to be writing scripts and to be posting ideas on TradingView. I'm working like 3 jobs right now, and that's not a joke. I'm a full-time software engineer, and I'm also a part-time instructor at a community college, and then I also have my own endeavors here with Big Bits and other things that I do. So very busy person. I don't always get to share these ideas with you, so when I do it, I do try to make it very important. So if you want to see those updates, you can always subscribe to the channel here as well, because I usually tend to make a video about it not too long after I come out with an important tweet. So I did say that the 4-hour time frame looked terrible yesterday, and when I tweeted that, we were around here. And what had concerned me was that, let me zoom in here, we had went below the 200 moving average for the 4-hour. Now this has, I believe, happened, but I believe we've only wicked below it for quite some time. Let's go back here. No, we did close below it here, but what was really concerning is that we did not come right back above it like we did back here. So when you get a good bounce off of a close directly below the moving average, that's a pretty good sign you're going to continue bouncing. What ended up happening is we got trapped below it, and you see these wicks on the upper portion of these candles. That was very bearish looking in my opinion, especially when they occur precisely on the 200 moving average on that chart. Now let's go back even further. We did close below back here for some time, but I did want to point out why I thought it looked worse than it did back here. Look back here, look at that 200 moving average. It's still moving steadily up. What we were seeing yesterday was that the moving average had started to turn down at the same time that the price started to close below it. So even though we've had price correct back upwards some here over the last 24 hours, I'm still not sold that this is a correction just yet, and that we are going to continue to move up in this pattern. You might watch other videos of people here on YouTube. I do from time to time while I'm working, and they will have this wonderful like ascending wedge pattern forming that you can take a look at, and it bounced right off that ascending wedge. I'll show you why I thought it was going to bounce yesterday at that particular point. If it were to bounce. It did have a good spot, and it happens to align with their TA, and you'll notice that happens a lot when TA starts to be congruent and sort of complies with other people's TA. You tend to get a consensus, and that's why the price bounces sometimes, at least in my opinion. When you have more people with different TA producing the same results, it seems like common sense that those results would be more likely to occur. So that's just something I'm looking at. But again, the moving average, the 200, started to move down. And then not only that, you had the 20, which is our mid band, below that. Everything was moving down. The 100 is flat. That's probably about the best thing about this, that the 100 is still above the 200 here, and it's flat. Of course, we can always come back and close above it and be fine. Now, I'm going to go back. Let's see when the last time we closed and stayed for a period of time below the 200 on Bitcoin, and the 200 was moving down. The 200 started moving down here, and we closed below it. This is exactly what I was concerned about, was this price action. You can see we had, similar to this, that the 200 was moving down, and a lot of our other moving averages were moving down as well. Although the difference in this case is that some of our other moving averages were still above this, so it was a lot more bullish still. But the last time we had the 200 move down and price below it was back here. It's pretty scary to look at on the chart. And again, this was the retest after we first broke out of the huge bear market, we broke out somewhere around here, and there was like a triangle that came through, and this was like a retest of that huge old triangle that we had for the longest time over several years, since the peak in 2017. So that kind of explained the huge dip at that point in time. But yeah, it looked about as bad as it has since then. And honestly, I think you can take a look at the chart and say it clearly has not started to look so bearish since then. Now, that doesn't mean we're fully bearish right now. I'm pretty confident that things are fairly neutral at the time being. But you can see why I said that and why there was some concern. Let's also zoom back in here closer to our current time frame, and let's take a look at the 1 hour chart. Very similar situation here. While the price was dropping, this is when it couldn't get back above that 204 hour moving average. We saw a lot of this price action staying below, and these moving averages staying below. And you'll notice our oscillators are kind of slowly moving up. That's typically not the greatest sign for price actually bouncing and staying up, because you'll notice we're at kind of a point of resistance on this 1 hour chart here, also against a moving average resistance. So the verdict is still out on how things are going to play out today. I think for the most part, the sentiment and fundamental analysis are all pretty bullish. So that's why even when things look bearish on our indicators right now, I'm still, for the most part, bullish, and I'm not inclined to sell anything, and I'm definitely not inclined to short any position that would be out there. So let's go out, take a look back at our 1 day chart here on Bitcoin. And I told you yesterday why I thought we were going to bounce potentially, and it seemed very likely we were going to bounce either yesterday or today, is because we were approaching this key moving average, the 50-day moving average, and we also came very close to touching the bottom Bollinger Band here yesterday as well. Now, it turns out we closed the day pretty much directly on the 50, bounced back up pretty strong so far today. We're in between these moving averages. The bands are starting to tighten up on the Bollinger Band, and this usually starts to indicate a little bit of sideways movement. You can see where they tightened back here, and things kind of went neutral for a little bit before they started breaking upward. We got the new all-time high. We could see something where they tighten up again, and perhaps there'll be a stronger breakout this time if that were to occur. And I do think it's very likely that whatever the next breakout is from this pattern is going to be relatively huge. And I want to go ahead and show and put that on the chart, that sort of ascending triangle that other people have. Or ascending wedge, whatever they call it. No, I think they're looking at it on the regular, perhaps. I usually use the logarithmic. I don't know what they're using exactly, but there is some sort of channel forming in through here. You can see that's a pretty clear channel. You have your your heart line is what a lot of them like to refer to it as. I call it the midline for whatever reason. You got your support down here. You got your resistance up here. You can see that was a pretty clear point to where there should have been support. Now, what does concern me is our moving average on our Bollinger Band looks to be forecasted to be moving downward. And that means that we need to get the price to outpace what happened back here in order for this to continue to climb upward. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't go neutral and then move upward from there. It means that it's very likely that this is going to move downward unless we can outpace the gains from here. We do have a head start. Our price is here. The last candle included back here. So it's kind of good, but there are some concerns there with the forecast. Now, as far as my indicators and what I see looking at this, I was firmly neutral, if not leaning a bit bearish. And I gotta say, we are very likely to bounce, in my opinion, from here. Doesn't mean anything. I also thought we were going down to 38,000 potentially around this point in time, mainly because of how the indicators looked at that point. But there is a bunch of uncertainty, in my opinion, in the way the indicators look. Now, on the daily, things look decent. And by that, I mean we have a very low stochastic weights advanced value. And let's go back through time and let's see. This goes all the way back to 2017. Let's see how often it gets below here, especially during a bull market. Let me hit shift, that way it makes the line straight. Well, I forgot to actually click to add it there. Going back to the last bull market, let's assume we're still in a bull market. That red line is the value that we're at currently. We only hit this value once in the last bull market there, twice here, 3 times here, and we were only under it for several days. That's it. We were only below this level 3 times in the last bull market on the stochastic weights advanced. Now, of course, when the bear market hit, that's a little bit different. But also, when the bear market hit, you can also tell we weren't overbought for a long period of time as well. So I seem to think that most people believe we are in the very much bullish cycle right now. So I tend to try and align the values of these indicators with what we would expect during the bullish market. And you can see the last time we got low here, it pretty much timed the bottom perfectly on that huge dip the last time we went down. And then also back here, these values seem to be pretty good indicators that we are going to get a bounce. Now, it doesn't mean that the price can't slow down and move sideways and go neutral and then come back down for a bit. It just means that it seems like we're likely at a temporary bottom of some sort. That's just my opinion. The RSI and also the MACD are also, in my opinion, fairly neutral. I want to see the RSI close above its smooth value here, which I believe is just an 8-period whole moving average, something like that. I can't remember my settings off the top of my head, and I'm not really going to bother to look, but just because the values work for me. But the MACD is a little concerning. We do want it to switch back upwards, but MACD is really slow. So that means the price is going to have to bounce before then. But when it does trigger, it's usually a longer term signal, in my opinion. So something to keep an eye on. I know I've talked about Bitcoin for quite a bit now, but now we still got to look at the weekly chart. All right, here we go. There is that channel that we are currently in. You can tell pretty clearly. The weekly is much more confusing to look at, in my opinion, for Bitcoin. Usually when we have this sort of sideways action on the stochastic weights advance, we get a big move in price, either upwards or downwards, to break that. You see there's clearly this bullish divergence that formed, bearish divergence, that formed on the RSI up here. We are now trending down on the RSI. If anything, it's something you need to be cautious about. But on the other hand, we also have Ethereum up here, which, if the price doesn't completely have the bottom drop out on it and go down all the way to its weekly mid-band, somewhere around $1,200 to $1,300, we're looking at a nice smoothing here. Now, you can see we had something similar back here with Bitcoin. I'm hoping you can still see this. But yeah, we had something similar back here with Bitcoin. If that same thing happens here, everything could be delayed a little bit more. And there's just a lot of reasons to be cautious about buying here. But at the same time, you see all the news and the sentiment coming out. It's very, very bullish. I'm very insistent that we're going to have some sort of cool down in the market during the summer in order to validate these crazy all-time high figures people are throwing around, like 1 to 200,000 on Bitcoin and 5 to 10,000 on Ethereum. I think things have to kind of cool down. This is a monthly chart that we're looking at now. Bitcoin is very overbought. We aren't even close to the upper Bollinger Band. We haven't even traded close to it this entire month. That's pretty wild to think about. Now, the same thing is pretty much applicable to Ethereum, although it seems to be kind of lagging little bit in price. So there's almost undoubtedly going to be some sort of cooldown, but you'll look at the major volume spikes here on these charts. It seems to indicate that even if there is a cooldown, it's still very much bullish, in that the volume is increasing kind of more towards the upside. We'll see what happens when we finally get a red monthly candle, but the hope is that it's just a small kind of cool down period throughout spring or summer, and then fall and maybe winter kind of come back with a vengeance. I know myself and many other people are kind of targeting around September to maybe get out a little bit sooner than we have in the past, because it does feel like this is moving quicker than it did in the previous cycles. Now, I realize I've been talking a lot. I'm not going to try and take up much more of your time. I'm not going to dig into a bunch of altcoins and all of this stuff like I sometimes do. But you can see Ethereum, it's pretty much the same charts. It really is. If you look at it, you know, just the MACD is a little bit lower. That's about it. Yeah, Ethereum hasn't been this low in a long time on the stochastic advance, especially not during that bull cycle. It only got this low once. So, something to keep in mind. This could very well be a buying opportunity, and maybe one of the last decent ones you get. But, never know. Like I said, I am firmly in my positions as a bull over the last couple of years. I do not make short-term decisions really anymore, mainly because my risk has been mitigated mostly by time. I think things are looking really good in the mid to long term on where I'm at. So I'm in no rush. I'm pretty happy with where we are. But I do like to go over the TA to kind of get a feel for how things are going. I would like to be aware how the market's going when we do think that we are approaching the cycle top. And I don't think anyone thinks we're approaching the cycle top right now. So that's something to keep in mind, even if you are in long-term positions. Because if you can, even in your long-term positions, capture a good portion of those profits, you might be very, very happy. So we'll see how things go. That's going to be it for now. Again, shout out to TradingView, Pine Coders, Brave as well, for all the stuff they've done for me. And again, if you want to join TradingView with a paid plan, use the referral link in the description for the video. That'll help you get some money towards your next subscription, your next part of your paid plan. Also helps me out a little bit, but it's just good to kind of support each other when we're trying to build a community within TradingView. And I know I've done a lot on TradingView, and I really appreciate it when people sign up using the referral. That really helps a lot. But that's going to be it for the video. If you like the video, please go down and leave a like on the video. And if you've watched the video this long, I would hope that you actually liked watching the video and you would want to watch more. So go ahead and subscribe while you're down there and turn on notifications so you can get updates like this one again in the future. But that's going to be it for now. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.